If this was 1996, I would love this band.
So I'm going to go straight in and introduce Myke to everyone. We did do a video, I think it was like 3 years ago. We did a video quite a while back on our favorite records of that year. Can't remember what it was. Everyone seemed to enjoy it, and everyone's been asking me if I was going to do a video of you again. And I've been really into music recently, been delving back into record collecting and stuff like that, and obviously rewatching a lot of my old videos. And I don't know why, but really got back into it. So yeah, I'm back here with Myke Seatown. A lot of you might know him from Dead End Hip Hop, a hip hop review channel and discussion channel with, how many people is it? 4 mates, right? 4 of you together?
Yeah, there's 3 other guys that I argue with, and then there's a camera guy who occasionally I'll argue with.
You have your own YouTube channel as well, where you talk more about, would you say it's more of your personal choice of music? So more of the metal side, black metal?
My personal channel is more geared towards the things outside of hip hop that I'm into. So like you said, more metal stuff, punk stuff. I do some like discussion videos that I really wouldn't talk about on Dead End Hip Hop.
Yeah, the reason we got together today to do a video was to talk about the Vane album. It's called Errorzone. And I know a lot of people have been talking about it. I know that Melon just put up his video on his channel.
I was like, who's Melon? Sorry. So, Melon, got it.
Yeah, Melon just put up his video for his review of this album, and loads of people have been messaging me ever since I started making videos again. If I liked the album, if I was going to review it in general on Instagram, like what I thought of it. Tons of people have been linking me as well. I'm not really into that sort of music. I guess I am a little bit, like it does have splices of stuff that I'm into, but I definitely wanted to review it because I know so many people are either saying to me like they completely hate it, or they're just in love with it and they can't wait to see him live. So I'm going to start off with asking you how you feel about bands like this coming back around. So you got bands like Disembodied, Turmoil, tons and tons of these bands from the 90s, Converge obviously being a massive part of this, which were splicing elements of metal and hardcore together. Obviously there's hundreds and hundreds of bands that are doing this now. For some reason, there's been this massive revival recently in the 2000s, late 2000s, of people doing like this 90s style metalcore spliced together with new age beatdown, if you want to say it like that, just this really tough sounding hardcore. So how do you feel about that in general, that it's being revived in that sense?
To be totally honest, I haven't been paying attention. Certain bands will pop up on my radar only because people will send them to me on Twitter. You know, I'll see people talking about them on Facebook. But it seems like 9 times out of 10, when I go check the bands out, I don't like them at all. I used to love that 90s metal hardcore sound, but it seems like after the late 2000s, like around 2010, that sound got completely disinteresting to me. Of course, I loved bands like Disembodied. I loved bands like Integrity. You know, I liked Converge pre-Jane Doe. But the stuff that came out after that, it just really didn't pique my interest at all.
Just to let everyone know as well, obviously, like there's a difference between what Myke and I are talking about metalcore wise. There's 2 different types of metalcore, basically. There's this one that was around, we're going to say 2005 onwards. And sure, that's bands like As I Lay Dying, Norma Jean, all these sorts of metal bands that were taking elements of hardcore and putting it into their music. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about metalcore that happened in the 90s. So bands, obviously, like the biggest names out there are Disembodied, Turmoil, Converge, those sorts of bands that were around when hardcore was really big in the 90s, and they started to take elements from metal. So obviously their inspiration would be metal or punk. Obviously there's been this huge revival and loads of bands are just popping up everywhere. One of the main bands obviously are Code Orange, and they were, I'm not going to say they were the first to do it, but they were definitely one of the first people to get huge off of this revival. I'm not really into Code Orange at all, really. It does grab me here and there, but the type of negative stuff they're doing with the singing, for example, and the weirdness, like that just grabbed me so much. Like that band Twitching Tongues, you know, like I just couldn't get it. Like I just didn't understand it at all. And that's the same thing with Code Orange. Like it just completely goes over my head. But this band Vane, for some reason just caught me. Like it just grabbed me and made me want to listen to it. I don't know if it's like this hype machine or whether it was that 1,000 people were messaging me and telling me I had to do a review video. How was it your side? Like how much were people telling you had to listen to it, or did you even get that from people?
I'm a part of this hardcore group on Facebook. So I saw a shit ton of people talking about this band. I'd never heard of them. I saw some people saying that, oh my God, this is the best thing to come out in a decade. Then I saw some people that were literally like, this is the worst album I've ever heard. So I was like, how could something be this polarizing? When you asked me about it was around when I was going to listen to it anyway, because I was like, I gotta hear what this band is like. I finally did, and I can definitely see why this is a polarizing album. The weird thing with me is I kind of fall in the middle. I don't hate it. I definitely don't love it either. It's kind of like whatever to me, but I can see both sides of the fence easily.
Okay, so you understand like why they're a big band at this moment, why there's a hype behind it.
Absolutely, because what they're doing right now is a sound that hasn't been done this way in a very long time. When I put this on, the first thing I thought of, I was like, dude, if this was 1996, I would love this band.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. Like I was born in 87. I'm 31 now. So unfortunately, I just would have been way too young to be around. I would have made it, but I would have been super young to be around for those shows. But I definitely caught the whole Converge thing. That was definitely a big part of my life. But a lot of bands had split up by the time that I started going to shows. So I do get what you're saying, but obviously I can't really comment on that too much. Just to give some facts to the people that are watching, if they don't know who Vane are, they're from Boston, Massachusetts, and they brought out this record on June 22nd, 2018. It's an 11-track album. Isn't their first release. They have been around, you know, they've released stuff before, but this one is the only one that I've ever heard of. Never even seen the logo, never even seen the band, heard nothing of them ever. For a band to be hyped up this much, and for me to have never heard them before, but them to have had releases before, was a big part of me wanting to go in and listen to it. I'm going to talk about the first track, and then I'm going to go over to you. The first track, which is called Virus / Vibrance. This was the track that I first listened to. This was the very first thing that I ever heard of this band. And it starts with exactly the same start as a Slipknot song, which is called Surfacing. Like it's just got this like jungle drum and bass thing going on. And I was like, what the hell? Like this is exactly the same. I was brought up on Slipknot. That was my time, you know, like I was brought up on new metal. Like that was how I got into metal music. It was all new metal, like Papa Roach, Korn, and Slipknot. Like that was all me when I was younger in my teens. For me to hear that, obviously, it just put like a light bulb on. I couldn't get enough of it. I was like, right, I have to listen. But then the more I got into the track, the more I really like just I couldn't take it. It was just another Code Orange, but with like these new metal influences. So I love the new metal part. Don't get me wrong, but this Code Orange thing that I saw like pushing its way into this music was kind of annoying me. But then I was like so torn because they were doing stuff in there that had some awesome burning nostalgia of these new metal bands. So I was really torn, but the first track definitely gripped me.
The funny thing is we have the opposite feeling when it comes to the first song. So when it came on and I heard the weird, like you said, the jungle drum thing, I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, what are they doing? And then when it came in, I was like, oh, like that's what this band sounds like. And then everything started to make sense because I can't say that this is my term. This is definitely somebody else's, but I won't say who it is. But somebody that I know was calling this corn verge. And, you know, the guy's a jokester. So I was like, oh, he's probably just fucking around. When I heard this, I was like, that's perfect. That's exactly what this sounds like. It has the chaos of Converge, and then it has those weird riffs that Korn had. Now, I don't mind the chaos of Converge. I cannot do that Korn guitar. I just can't do it. Anytime those parts would come up, I would just be like, this is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. What they're doing is fairly unique, like combining old late 90s, early 2000s new metal with 90s hardcore. I think it's an interesting idea, but we came about we have like a 10-year gap.
Yeah.
So when new metal was popping up, I was already into hardcore, and I thought new metal was fucking awful. I hated it. You know, I liked Korn for about 10 minutes, and that's only because they opened for Biohazard, and I thought they were a hardcore band.
Dude, that would have been a sick show. Biohazard and Korn.
I saw that show when I was 15. It was Biohazard, Korn, House of Pain. I forget who the other band was. But yeah, that was when I first heard Korn. And I was like, okay, these guys are cool. And I bought the cassette, and I was like, holy shit, this sucks. When the new metal thing got really popular with Mudvayne and Slipknot and Disturbed and all that other shit, I was just like, no, I don't want this dude bro metal shit. I'm listening to hardcore. That stuff does not resonate with me whatsoever. So it takes me back to the late 90s when that stuff was getting popular, and all of these super douchey bros were showing up at Sick of It All shows trying to beat people up, because, you know, that was kind of the transition that was happening with a lot of these people. Like you, for instance, you heard new metal and it got you into hardcore, right? And metal and stuff. There were people like you in the States, but they were just being kids. Like they would hear new metal and they start coming to hardcore shows and think that those two things were hand in hand when they weren't. And that's what this band takes me back to, that awful time where music was so fucking confusing.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's a really good point to make. And I really wanted to bring up this point anyway, is that this is going to sound so geeky and so typical, like music nerd, but the age I am right now, I just don't go to shows anymore. I just don't feel like I would ever in a million years go to see this band. And I know that if I did, it's just going to be kids that are probably like 15 years younger than me just kicking each other in the head. I've got nothing against that. Like, it's cool. Like, do whatever you want, have fun, punch each other to vein or whatever. But I just feel like this music is breeding that attitude. That's just something that personally doesn't resonate with me at all. I love hateful music, don't get me wrong. But I feel like this music is just breeding that, what you just said, like the bros of hardcore. I just feel like these kids are going to be wearing their Nike Air Maxes and going to be kicking each other in the head. I don't know if that's like a super ignorant thing to say, but it's just exactly how I feel when I listen to this. The same with Code Orange, you know, like I would never go to a Code Orange show. As much as I like maybe a few riffs of theirs, you know, like I can't say that I dislike everything they've ever done, but I just wouldn't go, because every video I've ever watched is them like being bros, basically, like the weird goth bros, you know?
I get what you're saying. I mean, to be honest and to be fair, I got the same feeling when I listened to Nails, that it's just a bunch of dickhead bros beating the shit out of each other. But I 100% understand what you're saying, that I feel like going to a show like this, I would not get anything out of it, because unlike Nails, with this band, I just feel like it's heavy for heavy's sake. I don't feel any passion behind this band. And I'm not trying to be a jerk or a dick to these guys, you know. I wish them all the best, and I'm glad they're having a good career. But for me personally, I don't get any emotion or passion or purpose behind this. All I get is, we're heavy. And that was what I got with new metal, is it was like, we're heavy. Well, what else? We're heavy. Like, there's nothing else there. I read through the lyrics, and again, this is not shitting on them or being crappy about, you know, whoever writes their lyrics, but it was just like, I'm not pulling anything from this. When I listen to Nails, I get that we're pissed off, we're angry, and, you know, whatever. But this, I just feel like I'm not getting anything. Like it sounds almost empty. Like it's totally by the numbers heavy music. So it does nothing for me.
Yeah, that's a good point that you made, actually, about that it's heavy for heavy's sake, and that when you listen to a band like Nails, you can feel that they're pissed off. Whereas this band, you feel like they're just doing they're playing the riffs just for the sake of being heavy for the music, rather than actually throwing out some real hard emotion that comes over in the music. And like you said, we're not here to put this band down at all. And we're not here to be like throwing shade on people putting their heart into their music. That's not it at all. It's just that maybe production wise, Nails obviously has that real gritty, dirty, horrible sound that every time he screams, it's clipping, and like, but in a good way, you know, like you can just hear that he's so angry. Whereas when you hear a band like this and the production is towards that more of the new metal production, it does obviously bring up memories of new metal, which is generally heavy for heavy's sake or weird for weird's sake. And that's what grabbed like me at the start. I was like, dude, this is so strange. This is like super weird. But then as I got more and more into the album, I was like, yeah, this is just a hardcore album. Like this is just a heavy hardcore album. And it's just very, very well produced. It's just a really, really good, solid album. But I just don't like it.
I get it. You know, when I first put this on, I thought it was weird for about a song or two until I realized what they were doing. I feel like this would only be really shocking and weird for someone's first listen because it's jarring at first. Once you realize that they're seriously just remaking late 90s hardcore and throwing in Slipknot and Korn, even fucking Stained, when they're just throwing these bands in there, it's really not that weird. That was why nu metal led people to hardcore, because the sounds at the time were fairly similar. Like you just said, the perfect excuse as to why they were different is the production was different. Hardcore bands were poor. You know, we recorded at studios where it was $100 for a week. So everything sounded gross and sounded ugly, just like the music was. But with nu metal, everything sounded too polished. And that's the problem with this.
Yeah, but maybe that's just because there's money behind it though. Like that's what I don't, sorry to stop you, but I just feel like, there's just money. There's like, and maybe I'm completely wrong here. Maybe I'm just completely wrong, but I feel like there's tons of money to be had in this revival. Like,
sure,
kids will buy the merch. Kids want to look cool. Like, kids want to dress in a certain way. In the 90s, like, fashion thing is massive right now. I feel like there's money to be made, and maybe that's why. Like, because when nu metal came out, like, nu metal was cool. Limp Bizkit were in the charts, dude. Like, they were number one. There was no messing with that band. They're millionaires. Who's to say when a band is successful? Because successful has nothing to do if you're a good band or not. Like,
absolutely. Limp
Bizkit are beyond terrible, like beyond it. And it's even like, I own their records, like, and I'm not even gonna like try and hide that. That's something that is, for me, it's like half funny and half nostalgic. And when I put it on, I can laugh, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I was into this so hard. But that's how I feel about Vane. Is Vane, or not Vane in general, but are the Vanes, Code Orange and Twitching Tongues, is that the new metal of our generation now? Is that going to be looked back upon and it's going to be like, dude, that was trash?
Yeah, I agree with you. Even though I don't like newer Converge albums, there's plenty of money there. And those albums still sound gritty. Like when they play a fucking breakdown riff, even if I don't like it, you feel it. I feel like there is an energy, there's an emotion behind those riffs. Everything is so encompassing. I don't feel that with this. I feel like it just sounds empty. And I feel the same way when I hear Code Orange. Me and Fantano, we reviewed that Twitching Tongues album, and I felt the same way about that. It just doesn't feel like there's anything behind the riffs. I feel like I'm unnecessarily shitting on these guys. Yeah. And I don't want to be super negative. It's just being an old hardcore kid who grew up in the 90s and the 2000s, this kind of stuff just doesn't do it for me. Like, I hear Converge, I hear Coalesce, I hear Botch, I hear Disembodied when I listen to this, but it's just, I would rather listen to those other bands because I feel like they were doing it more genuine.
It may sound like we're, like you said, like we're throwing shade or whatever, but it's not about that. I just think that we don't understand this. We are too old for this. Like, this is not our time. It's just not something that we are young enough to appreciate. It's just the truth. Yeah. Like, this is something that is cool now. And people are going to look at this video and be like, oh, they don't know what they're on about. They're just some old hardcore guys. But that's the truth. That's it. Like, it's just not our thing because it's not in our time.
When I listen to this band, I can see exactly where their influences are coming from. If someone didn't go through that era the way me or you did, I can see this being completely mind-blowing because they're not going to know where that jungle beat came from, you know, or they're not going to know where those Korn riffs come from. Or maybe they do, and it just takes them back to when they were really excited about music. I definitely don't want to imply that people only like it because it's popular, but I'm not going to lie and say that that's not a factor. God, people my age are going to want to punch me in the face. But I feel like bands like this are the Earth Crisis of today. Like when Earth Crisis was really popular in my day, like that was the band. There was nothing above that. Like that was the pinnacle of hardcore was Earth Crisis. This, to these kids, I can totally see in the next 2 years, this is their pinnacle. And that's cool. You know, hardcore was made for young people. We're not young anymore.
I think I'm going to rate it twice because like for the people right now, I know this is a solid album. Like technically it's definitely up there. Like it's quite a high 7 or whatever. But for me, it was just like a 4, like 5. I can see the technicality there and I really appreciate it. I like that they're trying to revive that 90s thing. So that's where the points are coming from. But I can appreciate that it's definitely a huge, well, it's going to be up there in the 9 or 10 for these people that are loving it. So for me, 4 or 5. How do you feel about it?
You said it perfectly, dude. For a lot of kids, this is going to be an extreme high point of the year. For me personally, it just doesn't do it for me. It starts and ends at, it's just not for me. It's not bad music. I would never say, oh my God, that band sucks. It's just not for me. So I would definitely say it's like probably around a 3 or a 4 for me personally.
Cool. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. It's 10:30 right now in Berlin. Are you still on your lunch break?
Yeah, it's 4:30 here.
Whoa.
So it's like the middle of the day here.
Thank you so much for taking time to come out and record this video with me. Yeah, thank you very much for doing this. A lot of people have been asking us to do it for a long, long time since we did that video together. I would really love it if we could get back together and do another video sometime soon. Tell us what you want me and Myke to talk about, and we'll do a video in maybe in like a month's time or something.
Yeah,
and
perfect.
We'll just talk about whatever you want us to talk about. Probably the best thing for us to talk about is something that we really don't understand, because then we're just going to get really annoyed.
We'll give those old man answers. People love old man answers.
Exactly. If you enjoyed this video, obviously press that little thumb thing down there and the subscribe button and all that. I'm going to leave the link, obviously, to Myke's channel below and Dead End Hip Hop. Go and subscribe to them because it's an awesome channel. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see everyone soon.
Thanks, dude.
I can't understand your thoughts.